is not updated to VPXA. So that means the administrator who is logged into this ESXi host directly, and the administrator who is logged in through vCenter server, the administrator who is logged in through vCenter server will not know that there is another administrator who is logged into the ESXi host from the background. So what are the configurations this administrator who has logged in directly is doing? That information is not updated to the vCenter server session. Why? Because that information is not updated to VPXA. Okay, so there might be conflicts in the configurations. Why? Because vCenter server will know anything about its host only through VPXA, and someone who is connected directly is directly communicating with hostd, is not communicating with VPXA. So this information is not updated to VPXA. If it is not updated to VPXA, then vSphere client session through vCenter server will not know. So there might be conflicts in your configurations and in your infrastructure. Okay, so that's the reason why in real time we configure something called lockdown mode. When you configure lockdown mode, then direct connections to ESXi host are blocked. These kind of direct connections are blocked. The only way you can access an ESXi host would be through vCenter server. Would be through vCenter server. Now here, you see this process or something called VPXD. Now VPXD is the vCenter server process. VPXA is the vCenter agent, and hostd is the process on ESXi host, which is used by vSphere client as well as by vCenter server through VPXA. Now if you see this, I can call VPXA as the intermediary between the hostd process and the VPXD process. And vCenter server will know anything about this ESXi host only if that information is coming through VPXA. So what are the configurations I do on my ESXi host? That configuration information vCenter server is storing in that on the database of vCenter server. So that means VPXA is responsible for updating the database of vCenter server. All right. So in real time, we configure lockdown mode, so no direct connections are possible. All the connections are through vCenter server, so that we know what is happening in our infrastructure, and the configurations and each and every information is absolutely the same. Fine. So it is very important that you understand this, and it is also very important for you to troubleshoot certain scenarios. And if you understand this, then you'll be easily able to troubleshoot in certain scenarios where you'll not be able to get connected to any ESXi host through vCenter server or even directly. Okay. Any questions on this particular slide, guys?
There will be only one session per host.
No, there might be multiple sessions to the same host. Okay. Okay. When you are connected directly to an ESXi host, that communication is directly going to the hostd process. Okay, and the same host can also be connected through vCenter server, and that communication is coming through VPXA. Clear? There are two ways how you are communicating. One, you are communicating directly to hostd. Second, also in the second scenario, also you are communicating with hostd, but that communication is coming through the VPXA, which is the vCenter agent. Am I clear?
So here the VPXA and VPXD are the agents on host ESXi agent and vCenter server. Is that right? ESXi host and the vCenter server. Is that right?
Try to understand this. VPXA is the vCenter agent on ESXi host. Okay.
Okay. And the VPXD, what?
VPXD is the process or the service of vCenter server which is running on vCenter server itself. The particular service is called as VPXD. vCenter server service is VPXD.
Okay, so the VPXA VPXA is the agent of vCenter servers running on the ESXi host.
Yes, absolutely right. Right. Okay. Any doubts here? Any other questions?
And can you explain the process of lockdown again? I actually sort of lost the
Yeah.
communication for a while.
Lockdown mode is something where we block any direct connections to ESXi host. So that means if I enable lockdown mode, then I'll not be able to connect to an ESXi host directly using vSphere client. If I want to get connected to an ESXi host, that would be only through vCenter server.
Okay.
Clear? So why we are enabling lockdown mode? So that there is no mismatch in the configuration. Why? Because someone connected directly, that session is not updated in vCenter server sessions. Okay. So there might be mismatch and misconfigurations, and that may create problems in your vSphere infrastructure. So we'll enable lockdown mode so that no one can log in directly to an ESXi host. Everyone has to log in only through vCenter server. And when someone is communicating with an ESXi host through vCenter server, then that all that information is updated, and we have the information about the configuration changes which are being occurred on that particular host. Clear? Clear, guys? Any other questions apart from this? Yes. The troubleshooting part, okay, not to worry, we'll discuss that in the troubleshooting session, okay. Fine, but just to inform you that, guys, if you have to use vSphere client to get connected to an ESXi host, okay. Let us say you use vSphere client and you are unable to connect to an ESXi host, okay, and it will give you an error, some sort of error that could not be connected to the server, fine. Then you try to ping to the ESXi host using the IP, and you found that it is pinging. There is no problem in pinging, so that means there is network connectivity. So what might be the issue? In this case, most probably host D process might be not responding. Okay, so that might be the issue. If host D process is not responding, then you cannot get connected to any ESXi host using vSphere client. Did you get the idea? And how to overcome that, how to troubleshoot that, we'll discuss that in the troubleshooting session, not to worry. But I gave you an idea why you to understand on which components or vSphere infrastructure is dependent on. Clear? If host D process is not running, then you may not get connected to your ESXi host. Yeah? So that's how it is. Yes. All right. Now, guys, vCenter server is nothing but a service which runs on your Windows machine traditionally, normally. And no doubt it is a service, but it includes many services. And those many services are categorized into three types. The first one is core services, the second one is distributed services, and the third one are additional services. Now the core services, what is the core service of vCenter server basically? Now it configures the host and the virtual machines. You can provision virtual machines. You can manage resources and the virtual machines. You can schedule certain tasks, and you can vCenter server also maintains all the statistics uh, like the processes, the resources utilization, the logging information, so on and so forth. And there are certain settings called alarms, which will alert you on certain what do you say parameters. Suppose a virtual machine is utilizing more than 90% of its CPU or more than 90% of its memory, then there are certain alarms which can be triggered, and those management of alarms is also the core service of vCenter server, as well as all the events which are occurring on your vSphere infrastructure. All these events are also recorded, and this is also a core service of vCenter server. Okay, this comes under core services, and you need not install these services, guys. When you install vCenter server application, all these services gets installed by default. Then comes the distributed services. Distributed services include the services like vMotion, storage, vMotion, DRS, and HA. Now, this depends on these services also gets installed by default. However, these services depends on vSphere licensing. Okay, uh, vSphere licensing, and if you go with what to say the most advanced licensing, that is Enterprise Plus, then it will have all the services available. Fine. And on the other licensing versions, you might not have the other services. For example, Essential and Essential Plus will have HA, but it doesn't have the DRS functionality. Fine, in that way. So it depends on the license what you have purchased. You will get distributed services. However, these services are also getting installed automatically. You need not install them separately. Now, then comes the additional services. As these are additional services, that means these are not getting installed by default. You need to install it separately. For example, VMware vSphere Update Manager. I have discussed what is Update Manager in our first class, in our first session. Guys, Update Manager provides centralized patch management in your vSphere infrastructure. You can patch your ESXi host as well as upgrade your ESXi host from versions 4.x to 5.x. So this additional service is not installed by default. You need to install it separately. And sometimes these additional services are also called as vCenter server modules. And there is another service running on your vCenter server, that is the database interface service. This interface service provides the connectivity to your database, which vCenter server requires to store all the configuration information and the inventory data. And Active Directory service, Active Directory interface service, by which you can get connected to Active Directory so that the users of Active Directory can access your vCenter server. And there are certain APIs and SDK services running on vCenter server, like VMware vSphere API. Now these APIs are used by vSphere client to get connected to your vCenter server, and the SDK, vSphere SDK, software development kit. These SDK services are used by vCLI, vSphere command line interface. I told you this is SDK, software development kit based on Perl. And using vCLI, I can execute the commands on an ESXi host through vCenter server at that particular time. These vSphere SDK services are used by vCLI software development kits. So these are the services which gets installed when you install vCenter server. All right. Now let us move forward and try to understand the additional services. VMware vSphere Update Manager. These are also called as vCenter server modules. Okay. Now it can be Update Manager or Site Recovery Manager, and these are applications basically which will add additional features to your vCenter server. Okay. Now, what is the meaning of it? That Update Manager, no doubt, is used to patch your ESX or ESXi host in your infrastructure. However, you cannot use Update Manager to patch your ESXi host without vCenter server. Why? Because it is an additional component or additional, service of vCenter server. So Update Manager, no doubt you install it separately, but you cannot use Update Manager to patch your ESXi host without vCenter server. So these modules like Update Manager and Site Recovery Manager have server and client components. The server components are installed on vCenter server machine, and the client components are called as plugins, and they are downloaded and installed to vSphere client. So when I say that the plugin or the client component of Update Manager is downloaded and installed to vSphere client, that means this client component, this plugin, is getting installed on the machine where you have vSphere client. So it may be your local laptop or desktop. So this Update Manager client plugin has to get installed locally on your local machine. So these are vCenter server modules. Any questions with these server modules, guys? Any questions with these server modules? These are nothing but applications which provide additional features to your vCenter server, like Update Manager. So once you configure this, you can patch your ESXi host using Update Manager through vCenter server. However, not to worry, we have a session on Update Manager, and we'll see how to configure, how to install the Update Manager, how to configure, and how to patch our ESXi host. Fine. Now, guys, plugins, vCenter server plugins are normally installed on the machine where vSphere client is running, and there are certain the default vCenter server plugins. For example, there are three plugins installed by default on the vSphere client machine. That is VMware vCenter Storage Monitoring Service. This monitoring service or this plugin provides the storage information on your vSphere client through vCenter server. So you can get the entire storage information using this particular plugin. The second plugin is vCenter Hardware Status. Using this plugin, you can get all the hardware information from an ESXi host. Then vCenter Service Status. By using this plugin, you can get the information of the vCenter services, whether they are running properly or not, or is there any issue with any particular service. So that information is updated using this plugin, vCenter Service Status. So these three plugins are default plugins. You need not install them separately. Okay, and let me move forward. Yeah. Guys, let me inform you one most important point: the difference between vCenter 5.0 and vCenter 5.1. Guys, in vCenter 5.0, when the installation of vCenter server involved two services or two components. The first one is inventory service, and the second one is vCenter server service. So this was in vSphere 5.0. In vSphere vCenter or vCenter 5.0, there were two components involved in the installation of vCenter server. One is the inventory service, the second one is vCenter server, and it was a simple install. One installation is going to install both the services by default. However, in vCenter 5.1, a new component has been added in vCenter server. Now, vCenter server installation includes three components. The first one is SSO server. The second installation involves inventory service. And the third component involves vCenter server service. Okay. Now, from vCenter 5.1, a new component has been added to our vCenter installation that is called a single sign-on server. Guys, have you ever heard about this particular term called single sign-on? Any idea? Guys, any idea? Have you heard about this particular thing like single sign-on? Okay, fine. Now, let me make it very clear, guys. Single sign-on is a generic term. Keep this in mind. When I say generic term, the single sign-on term is used in many infrastructures. Basically, what is the meaning and what is the usage of single sign-on is that with a single username and password, you can access multiple solutions. Let me give the example of single sign-on. Guys, if you have Active Directory infrastructure, then using a single username and password, you can access multiple solutions offered by Active Directory infrastructure. That is also single sign-on, guys, one type of a single sign-on. However, nowadays, single sign-on is being used to access multiple solutions offered through internet. For example, Google offers almost 15 solutions, and all those 15 solutions can be accessed by a single username and password. Your Gmail account can be used to access those 15 solutions offered by Google, like Google Maps, Google Docs. All these kind of solutions offered by Google can be accessed by a single username and password. Normally, SSO is a generic term. However, in vCenter architecture, why SSO was introduced? Here, guys, why SSO was introduced is because previously, till 5.0, there were many solutions like VMware vCloud Director. VMware vCloud Director is an application by which you can build a private or a public cloud. It's a product from VMware. You can build a private or a public cloud. Now, you may have vCenter Server, you may have vCloud Director, and till vCenter 5.0, if I want to access vCenter Server, then I had to use different username and password. And if I want to access vCloud Director, then I would have to use a different username and password. So there was no functionality that with a single username and password I was able to act or access two different solutions. So that's the reason why SSO was introduced. Once SSO is in place, you can access multiple solutions using a single username and password. This is the first reason why SSO was introduced. The second reason why SSO was introduced is because traditionally vCenter security is built on Windows security. And just now I inform you that who are the people, who are the users who can access vCenter server. Those are the local users of the machine where vCenter server service is running, or if that machine is a member of the domain, then Active Directory users can access that particular vCenter server. Now, guys, vCenter server is nothing but a service running on a Windows machine. Running on a Windows machine. Now, that machine can be a member of only one domain. It cannot be a member of multiple domains. Am I right? So that means only the users of that particular domain can access vCenter server if I give permissions. But in my infrastructure, there might be a scenario where my organization uses multiple forests, multiple domains, and multiple directory services. My organization may use LDAP. My organization may use NIS, so on and so forth. So, till 5.0, the only way I can access vCenter server was based on the local users or based on the Active Directory users. No other users on different directory sources were able to access my vCenter server. So once with the introduction of SS4 server or SS4 in vCenter 5.1, now using SSO I can integrate multiple Active Directory domains, multiple forests, multiple LDAPs, multiple NIS, local operating system users, and SSO has its own database, and SSO has a functionality to create its own SSO users and groups. So now, if I want to access vCenter server, users from multiple directory services can access my vCenter server. Why? Because SSO is in place. Fine. So let me show you how SSO functions. Guys, SSO functions only with web client. When you configure web client, then users log in through web client to access vCenter server. Let us see how that particular mechanism functions. I have different solutions. Let us say this is my vCloud Director, and this is my vCenter server, and here user logs in using web client. So here this is my vCloud, and this is my vCenter, and here the user logs in using web client. Once you configure web client, a user can log in using a browser. This is nothing but a browser here, a web browser. Okay. And here I configure SSO server. And now I can integrate multiple identity sources. Multiple identity sources like Active Directory, LDAP, NIS, local OS users, and SSO users and groups. Yeah. This is Active Directory. Maybe this is LDAP. This is NIS. This is local OS users, and this can be SSO users or groups. Okay. I can integrate multiple identity sources. Now, a user opens a browser and he enters the credentials to access one of the solutions, and those credentials are first sent to SSO server. Then SSO server is going to send that credentials to the backend identity sources. If that particular user is a member of an Active Directory domain, then SSO server is going to send that information to Active Directory. Active Directory confirms the authenticity. If the user is authentic, then it will send that information to SSO. Again, SSO server is going to convert that authenticated information into security tokens. It's going to convert that into security tokens. And the security tokens are returned back to the user. And based on the user's permissions, the user will be able to access the solutions. That can be vCenter server solution, or that can be vCloud Director solution. So this is the mechanism behind the SSO. User opens a browser, he enters the credentials. Those credentials are passed on to SSO server. SSO server will send that information to the background identity source. If we think that the user is an Active Directory member, then SSO is going to send that to the Active Directory. Active Directory checks the authentication. Once the user is authenticated, it will send that information back to SSO. SSO is going to convert that information into security tokens, and then that information is passed on to your client, web client, and based on the permissions, the user will be able to access the solutions. So there are two advantages basically with the introduction of SSO. Now I have the ability that users from multiple directory sources can access my vCenter server, and the second is that I can use a single username and password and access multiple solutions in my vSphere infrastructure. So that is what is mentioned. Let us compare and try to understand the benefits and features of vCenter server, vCenter single sign-on. Guys, vCenter single sign-on speed ups the operations of authentication, and it is less complex, and it supports multiple or non-Active Directory repositories, and there is trust between components. And a single sign-on supports for open standard protocols, SAML. SAML stands for Security Assertion Markup Language. Now these security tokens are nothing but SAML tokens, guys. It uses this language, SAML, Security Assertion Markup Language. Okay, and those are SAML tokens. Okay, fine, and it has a better architecture. What are the features? Now, with single sign-on, guys, single sign-on can auto-discover the other vCenter servers, vCenter server 5.1 is configured in your infrastructure. So, with the help of this, with this functionality of auto-discovery of other vCenter servers in your infrastructure, users can view all vCenter server instances in a single view, and because of this, there is no need for you to configure the link mode manually. So, link mode configuration not required. Why? Because single sign-on can discover the other vCenter servers in your infrastructure. All right, and if there is vCenter server 5.1, then you need to manually register it once. And apart from this, the other vCenter 5.1, if they are available in your infrastructure, they are auto-discovered, and there is no more requirement of link mode configuration from 5.1 onwards because of single sign-on. All right, that is this entire process which I've shown you in this particular figure that I've mentioned here. vSphere solutions, it can be vCenter server, inventory service, or it can also be vCloud Director. And vSphere platform services, that authentication is done by single sign-on. The customer identity sources. Customer identity sources like Active Directory, LDAP, and IS operating system users and SSO users. So users log in to the web client, that is the browser, okay, and the credentials are sent to SSO server. They are sent to SSO server. Then SSO server then sends that information to the backend identity source. The credentials are authenticated by the identity sources, and again that information is passed on to the SSO server. Then credentials are converted into security tokens. Those are nothing but security tokens. Those are SAML tokens, and users can access that security token is returned to the client, and based on the permission, the users can access the vSphere solutions. So this is how SSO server functions, and this is the advantage of SSO server, and it is a new component which has been added from vSphere 5.1 onwards. Guys, any questions with SSO single sign-on? Any questions with SSO, guys? Did you understand the concept of single sign-on? Guys, are you following? Okay, now, yes, I'm going to show you that. Okay, there are components. You have to install SSO. You have to install inventory service. You have to install vCenter server. As I informed you, from 5.1 onwards, vCenter server installation includes three components. That is single sign-on, inventory service, and vCenter server. Okay, fine. Now, single sign-on server also requires a database, guys, and I will discuss that in a moment. Like, so don't get confused with SSO, guys. SSO is a generic term, and in many infrastructures we use SSO. And don't get confused with those SSOs with our vCenter SSO server. Okay, here we have a specific reason why we are using vCenter's single sign-on server, and its configuration and its architecture is different. But why single sign-ons are used basically so that you can access multiple solutions using a single username and password. All right, it's a generic term. Don't get confused. All right, now guys, that SSO server, when you install SSO, basically it is installing four components or four different services. Now each service of SSO does one particular task. There are four components or four services. The first one is security token service. Now this is the service which converts that authentication into a security token of SAML. It uses security assertion markup language and issues that security tokens. So the first service is the STS service. The second service is called as SSO Administrative Server. This particular service configures the SSO server, and this is also responsible for managing SSO users and groups. As I told you, SSO has a database, and it has the functionality that you can create SSO users and SSO groups so that these users and groups can access your vSphere infrastructure. There is a third service which is called as lookup service. Now this lookup service contains the topology information about vSphere infrastructure. Now, because of this particular lookup service, I am able to auto-discover the other vCenter 5.1 servers in my infrastructure, and there is no need for me to configure the link mode. They are automatically linked because of this particular lookup service. Why? Because this contains the entire topology information about your vSphere infrastructure. All right. Then comes the third service, or the third component, which is called as SSPI, Security Support Provider Interface. Now, this is a basically Microsoft-based API, Application Programming Interface, which is used to perform authentication against Microsoft authentications. For example, SSPs like NTLM and Kerberos. Guys, you know that in Active Directory, the authentication is handled by the Kerberos protocol. And on the local authentication on Windows is handled by NTLM. So someone who is logging into the web client and that particular user is a Windows user, then SSO is going to use this particular API to perform the authentication. If that user is a local operating system user on Windows, or that user is an Active Directory user. So these are the four components or four different services running on your SSO server, and each one particular service is doing one particular task. Clear, guys? Can I move forward? Yep, fine. All right, guys. Now here, vCenter Server 5.1 supports different identity sources. So you can use Open LDAP versions 2.4 and later, Active Directory versions 2003 and later, and the local operating system users. Also be integrated with your vCenter Server. It's pretty simple. In vCenter Server, vCenter service, the third one is vCenter Server. Now, guys, you can install all these three components on the same machine, that means on a single machine, or you can also install it on 3 different machines. Guys, in production environment, if your infrastructure is very large, which includes some hundreds of servers and thousands of virtual, single sign-on server on one machine, maybe inventory service and vCenter server can be on second machine. Or you can also go in this way, single sign-on on one machine, inventory service on a separate machine, and vCenter server service on another machine. So it depends on your infrastructure size. If it is large, big, huge, and production environment, better to install them separately on separate machines. However, if it is small infrastructure, then you can install all these 3 components. Guys, it requires, and that means it gets installed only on a 64-bit operating system. Fine. And you require 3 GB RAM, 2 GB disk space, and 1 GB NAC file, whether it is a physical or a virtual machine. Nowadays, we are using only virtual machines to run our vCenter server. So, if, as I told you, SSO server requires a database. If you want to run the SSO database as well as the SSO application on the same machine, you are running the database and the application on the same machine. Fine. Right. Now, then vCenter inventory service. Now, what is the responsibility of vCenter inventory service? What does vCenter inventory service do? Now, vCenter inventory service stores the vCenter server application information and the inventory data. Okay, and it is responsible for searching and accessing the inventory of multiple vCenter servers which are in link. I'll be able to see other vCenter servers, and I'll be able to also see the other host of that particular vCenter server and its virtual machines. That is because of this inventory service. Why? Because this searches and accesses the inventory on the other vCenter servers which are in link mode. And vCenter server supports a login by SSO, and it is used by vSphere web client. And this particular service, if you want to install it on a separate machine, again, you require a 64-bit process because it gets installed on 1 GB disk space and 1 GB network. Server, there are 3 components. The SSO server, this requires a database. Inventory service doesn't require a database. vCenter server requires a database. So 2 components requires a database: SSO server and vCenter server. Let us see the third component, that is vCenter server. Guys, hardware requirements, again 64-bit CPU, require 4 GB RAM, 4 GB disk space, and 1 GB network. This is a vCenter server from operating system, and the database should also be 64-bit. On SSO, you can have a 32-bit database, but for vCenter server, you need to have absolutely a 64-bit database, right? And let us see what are the supported databases on vCenter server. vCenter server supports the databases like Microsoft SQL 2005, SP3, SP4 recommended, Microsoft SQL 2008, R2 Express, Oracle 10G and 11G, IBM DB2 9.5 and 9.7. Now let me inform you about vCenter server appliance. We know that vCenter server application traditionally is available to get installed on a Windows machine. However, we also have a vCenter server application running
running on
Sorry,
a
Mujib.
Linux machine.
Sorry
Yes.
to disturb you, Mujib. There's
Yes.
a lot of disturbance in the middle. Yeah, I think
Okay,
someone's
just
not on mute. Yeah, I think he's on mute.
All right, fine. Okay, now let me inform you the difference between vCenter Server application running on Windows and vCenter Server application running on Linux, which is in the form of vCenter Server appliance. There are two differences, guys. vCenter Server application running on a Linux, which is vCenter Server appliance, basically. There, it supports only one database, which is Oracle database. It doesn't support the other databases like IBM DB2 and Microsoft SQL. That is the one difference. Second difference, vCenter Server application running on Windows can have link mode configurations. So that means multiple vCenter servers can be linked together so that with a single instance, I can manage multiple vCenter servers as well as the hosts and virtual machines running on them. But this is not possible with vCenter Server appliance, which is based on Linux. Okay, these are only two differences. However, when you use vSphere client to get connected to vCenter Server, whether it is Windows-based vCenter Server or Linux-based vCenter Server, which is vCenter Server appliance, no difference from the perspective of management. The way the screen appears, the way you manage your vSphere infrastructure is absolutely the same. No difference in it. Okay, so these are the two differences. If you are running vCenter Server application on Windows and if you are using vCenter Server appliance, which is based on Linux. Clear, guys?
Sorry, can you repeat the difference again, please?
Yes, guys. vCenter Server application, you can configure it and run it on Windows machine. If you are running on a Windows machine, then vCenter Server supports all these databases. Okay? But if you are using vCenter Server appliance, which is based on Linux, it supports only Oracle database. It doesn't support Microsoft SQL. It doesn't support IBM DB2. Yeah? This is the first difference. Second, if you're using vCenter Server based on Windows, then you can go ahead and use, or the link mode configuration is possible. But whereas if you use vCenter Server appliance, which is based on Linux, link mode configuration is not possible. Clear? These are the two differences. Yep. Fine. Now I'll explain about this vCenter inventory in a moment after the installation of vCenter Server. Let us see the installation of vCenter Server. All right. So for that, I am connected to my data center with an RDP connection. Okay. For that, you require a Windows machine, which is running a virtual machine, which is running Windows Server 2008 R2. You can see this. I have named this virtual machine as Online VC Mujib, which is on 10.0.1.30. Okay. Now, you need to assign an IP address to this machine, make it the member of the domain, then continue with the installation of vCenter Server. Fine. I'm giving the same password, guys, uppercase S, OOM 1234. Uppercase S, OOM 1234. So
is this the same machine we worked on to create our ESX file?
Yeah, ESXi is the same machine, 10.0.1.30 and 10.0.1.20. On that, I have created a virtual machine with the name Online VC Mujib, and I've installed Windows Server 2008 Enterprise Edition on it. Okay, and I'm using this virtual machine to install vCenter Server. All right.
Is it a
So
64-bit or 32-bit, Mujib?
64-bit, guys. It is a 64-bit operating system.
Actually, I was about to install this 64-bit R2, but I was getting some error. The software will not support. There is no support for VT or something. I am getting.
Yes. So, guys, you have created your virtual ESXi's, right?
Yep.
We did,
Now
but
you cannot run 2008 operating systems on your virtual ESXi. You need to create it on my physical ESXi, which is 1.20 and 1.30. Okay. Yes. Someone was asking a question. Please raise. For vCenter Server, you have to create this machine on the physical ESXi 1.20 and 1.30, not on your virtual ESXi, guys. Okay.
That the image location. ISO image location.
It is in the data store. I'll show you just in a moment. Okay. So
I actually installed all this for the ESXi, but later down during installation, I suppose we'll ask these questions at the end of the session. Is that all right?
Fine. Sure. Let me assign an IP address to this machine.
You've only done one practical so far. Is that right, Vijay?
Yep.
There wasn't any practical yesterday? Okay.
No. I discussed only about a virtual machine, and there were few settings, few configurations which I showed you. Showed them like how to configure your ESXi host as an NTP client, how to synchronize your virtual machine's guest time with the host, and how to configure auto startup and shutdown of your virtual machines along with the host, and how to configure memory hot add and hot plug feature. These are few simple configurations which are required on virtual machine. I showed that particular part. It was not that major. And don't you forget to mention the DNS, guys. If you don't configure the right DNS, then this machine cannot be a member of the domain. So I have given the IP 210. Yeah. Number 210. Guys, if you see this right now, my virtual machine screen is pretty small, and if you see this, my cursor is getting locked within that particular window. This is because I haven't installed VMware tools yet. So let me also show you how to install VMware tools inside the guest operating system. Though it is pretty simple, but let me show you that. Okay. So how to install VMware tools is pretty simple. Go to VM in the console of this virtual machine. Go to guest, and here you find the option install or upgrade VMware tools. Once you click on it, what is going to happen is that the VMware tools will get mounted to the CD or DVD drive of this machine.
What was the use of VMware tools, Majid?
Guys, VMware tools plays very important role. Why? Because once you install VMware tools, it is going to install certain device drivers and certain services. Because of it, for example, this screen is pretty small. After the installation of VMware tools, it is going to install SVGA drivers, and the screen resolution will become bigger. And if you see right now, my mouse is being locked inside this virtual machine's console. Now, mouse operations are going to increase. It is also going to replace the generic drivers with VMware drivers. There are many things VMware tools are going to do. Fine. Just go through that particular slide of VMware tools, guys, and you need not worry. As I came across that particular component, which this particular VMware tools depends on, I'm going to discuss that. For example, I'm going to discuss in memory management class. I'm going to discuss this in my vMotion class. I'm going to discuss this in my clustering class, which are the services which are running on your guest operating system, which have been installed using VMware tools. So I need to install it. It is mounted to my CD or DVD drive of my virtual machine. You see this, you find VMware tools. All right. All you need to do is just double click to start the installation, and the installation of VMware tools is going to start.
And also, Mujib, I was
yes.
going to say, you haven't shared with us your personal contact details, because in case if you need to ask any questions with you, we can contact you, if that's all right.
The issue is that I'm not supposed to reveal my personal details, guys. However, I suggest you to have a word with Srinivas ji regarding this. If he permits, then I'm going to share my details.
Because I attended another class, and then in that class, the details were shared of the trainer. So I don't know if
however,
as well or not.
However, I first suggest you to have a word with Srinivas ji regarding this. If he says okay, I don't have any issues sharing my details with you guys. All right.
All right, I'll speak then.
All right. Have a word with Srinivas regarding this. All right. Fine. Okay, now here you find the options typical and complete. You can select the complete option. If you read the information there, you can select this option if you intend to run this virtual machine on multiple VMware products. For example, right now this virtual machine is running on VMware vSphere, but you intend to run this virtual machine on other VMware products like VMware Workstation, VMware Fusion, VMware Player, VMware Server, then go ahead and install the complete package. But if you want to install only on VMware vSphere, then go ahead and install the typical one. Okay, so that is the difference between typical and complete. I'm going with typical.
Sorry, could you repeat the difference again? Typical and complete?
Typical. If you select typical, then this virtual machine will run only on VMware vSphere. If you go with complete option, then this this virtual machine can run on other VMware products like VMware Workstation, Fusion, Server, these kind of components. Okay. So if you intend to run this virtual machine even on Workstation, then you have to go ahead and install VMware tools with complete option. Okay. So it will take a few minutes to install. And if you keenly observe, it is installing certain drivers like VMCI driver. You can see all the services and what type of services, what all it is installing. It's very, very important, guys. VMware tools plays very important role in our VMware vSphere infrastructure. There are many things depending. Many of the features are depending on VMware tools. So the first thing you as a VMware administrator you do after the installation of your guest operating system is to install VMware tools, and it plays a very important role, specifically in memory management and specifically in HA. If you want to use HA, guys, done, finish, and it'll ask for a reboot. I'll say no, why? Because I want to change the host name as well of this machine. I want to name it as VC Mujib. Okay, I'll say okay. Yes, restart now. After the restart, I'll then again make it a member of the domain, and then again it will ask for a restart. then we'll install vCenter Server application on this machine.
Are you on to 10.0.1.20 or 1.30?
I'm on 1.30. This virtual machine is on 1.30 right now.
Okay, because I was wondering, I created my own VM machine and I couldn't find it on the left hand.
Okay. Okay, guys. Now here you find the option to enter Control Alt Delete. Guys, whenever you are you want to enter into the console of your virtual machine using Control Alt Delete, do not use Control Alt Delete on your local machines. Use Control Alt Insert. If you use Control Alt Delete, then the command will go to both the physical machine as well as the virtual machine. Okay, so better to use Control Alt Insert. Okay, or you can go here to VM. In the guest, you find the option to send Control Alt Delete virtually. So now enter the password. And let us make this machine the member of the domain. Now you can see the screen is quite bigger and the mouse operations are good. And the domain here is xoom.com, zoom.com. Guys, make a note of the domain administrator credentials. The domain username is administrator DC. Well, because we are going to use this username to access our vCenter server, administrator DC, and the password is again the same, uppercase SOOM 1 2 3 4.
It's administrator DC, is that right?
Yeah, administrator DC.
Mm-hmm.
Welcome to the domain zoom.com.
What are the IP details you use there to connect this?
I've used the IP 10.0.1.200. I have assigned the IP 10.0.1.210. 210.
Okay. How about the
in the
DNS settings?
In the DNS, you have to use 10.0.1.200. DNS configuration is pretty important, guys. 10.0.1.200. DNS is 10.0.1.200, and the IP which I have assigned to the machine where I'm going to install vCenter server. This machine which is booting right now, I have assigned the IP 10.0.1.210.
We can use our own range, huh? Whatever we are using for HIOs.
Yes, you can use your own range, but do not forget to mention the IP address of your DNS. That would be the same, 10.0.1.200.
Okay. DNS and gateway.
Gateway should be the same. Yes, gateway and DNS should be the same. Now you need to log into the machine. Guys, when you log into the machine, you have the option to log into the local machine using local administrator account, or you can log into the domain. So log into the domain, guys, rather than log into the local machine. Okay. So in this way, right now, vcmujib/administrator is the local administrator account. No, I don't want to log in locally. I want to log in using my domain credentials. So switch user, select other user. Now I need to mention the domain credentials, like first the domain name, zoom.com, / the username. Username is administrator DC. And the password, uppercase SOOM 1 2 3 4. Enter. Now I'm logged into the domain. Of vCenter server. Now that ISO image is available on my data store. So click on VM, click on edit settings, then go to the CD or DVD drive, then select data store ISO file, browse, and if you see this on data store 1, I have the folder which says ISO images. Okay, and in this you find 2008 image as well as VMware VIM. This is the vCenter installation media. Select this ISO image, click on OK.
Which data store is it? Data store 1 is it?
It is 1.30. 1.30 you have only data store 1. Okay.
Okay.
The only data store on 1.30 is data store 1. Okay. Browse it, you find a folder called ISO images. When you browse that, you find VMware VIM setup all. That is the vCenter installer. Click on OK. Now this gets mounted to the CD or DVD drive of this machine. See guys, it is mounted to VMware VIM. This is just double click it, or you wait and click on auto run. It's one and the same. Okay, now this is your vCenter installer. Fine. Now here, the first option which is available is VMware vCenter Simple Install. If you click the option of Simple Install, then all the 3 components, single sign-on, inventory service, and vCenter server is going to get installed on the same machine. That means on this machine itself. Now this is good for small infrastructures, but however, if you are installing it in a real-time infrastructure, then better to go with separate installation. First, you have to select single sign-on, install it on one machine, then select vCenter inventory service, install it on separate machine, then select vCenter server, then and install it on third machine. Or you can do one thing, you can install single sign-on on one machine and inventory service and vCenter server on the same machine, but you need to install one after the other. But if you go with simple install here, then it is going to install all the 3 components, the SSO, inventory service, and vCenter server. And guys, if you're installing in real time, make sure you follow the chronological order. The first you need to install is SSO, second is inventory service, third is vCenter server. And this is how vCenter simple install is also going to install. When I click on install, it will start first the SSO, then it will go ahead and install inventory service, and the third it is going to install vCenter server. So the installation has started. You can see that.
If you're installing separately on different servers, we install SSO first on one server, and then and the inventory on the other server, and then the vCenter on the other server.
Yes.
You said why aren't we installing all the 3 components on one server?
See guys, there are 3 services, okay, and in real time, for example, your infrastructure is large, okay, and SSO requires a database, vCenter server requires a database, and if you run everything on the same machine, there will be a lot of load on that particular machine, and because of that, you may face problems. So better to separate them, and better to run them on separate machines, so there is not a lot of load, and multiple services are not fighting for the resources, so on and so forth. Okay. So better to segregate them.
If we install these 3 different components on 3 different servers, they obviously need to communicate with each other, right?
Yes, they are going to communicate with each other because they are going to ask you the information about the other one. Okay.
Okay, makes sense. So
they always have to be interconnected with each other. Yes, they are interconnected. There should be network, and there will be an IP address of it, so they communicate with the IPs with one another. All right. So now the installation has started. Click on next. It's pretty simple installation, guys. Now by default, single sign-on has an administrator account, and that administrator username is admin@system-domain, which is grayed out. This is the default administrator account of single sign-on. And here you need to assign a password to it or configure a password to it. Now that password needs to have at least 8 characters, and the complexity involves 1 uppercase, 1 lowercase, 1 number, and 1 special character. So let me configure the password for my single sign-on administrator account. I'm going ahead and configuring uppercase S OOM hyphen 1, 2, 3. So total 8 characters, which has uppercase, lowercase, a special character, and a number. So retype the password uppercase S OOM hyphen 1, 2, 3. Enter. Now we know that vCenter single sign-on requires a database. If you have an existing database like Microsoft SQL or Oracle, you can get connected to that database. However, if there is no database available, then it is going to install Microsoft SQL Express R2 edition on the same machine. So this is good for small infrastructures. For bigger infrastructures, guys, obviously it is going to ask you a a separate database. Better to go with separate database. Okay. Now, guys, usually this particular screen which you are able to see right now, okay, doesn't appear sometimes. Okay, sometimes it doesn't appear, sometimes it appears. This is appearing because most probably there is load on my server. Let us see that particular. What? There is load on this virtual
load
machine.
on the server, is it?
Yeah. Some sort of load. Only one virtual machine is running, but still there is a load on it. Okay, why there is a load? 73.32. Let us see the performance. See, guys, have you seen this? It is going high. Sometimes you come across this particular issue. If not, this screen doesn't appear, guys, normally. This screen where it is asking me about a password, right? That screen doesn't appear. However,
what's normal? Should it appear or should it not appear?
It will not appear. That is normal thing. But sometimes it may appear you. This would be the thing, guys. Here it is asking you the DBA username and password. Basically, whatever the password you have assigned for your single sign-on, okay, that would be the same password. Clear with the concept? Suppose this screen appears, you need to enter the same password which you have configured for single sign-on. Now, what I have configured for single sign-on, uppercase S OOM hyphen 1, 2, 3. The same password you have to give it. Uppercase S OOM hyphen 1, 2, 3. Okay. Now, here, this is how your single sign-on server is going to be identified in your network with a fully qualified domain name, which is vcmujib.zoom.com. Right? Click on next. This is the default setting. It uses the network service account. Go with the next option. Default, the location where it is getting installed under program files. Click on next. And here, guys, single sign-on uses an HTTPS port 7444, which is also a default port of single sign-on. So, interview point of view, someone may ask you what is the port used by single sign-on HTTPS port 7444. Click on install. And this installation will continue. And after that, installation is going to install the inventory service, then vCenter server. During vCenter server, guys, vCenter server installation in the background is also going to install a web server called Tomcat. In the background, vCenter server installation installs a web server called Tomcat. And have you heard this web server called Tomcat, guys? Anyone knows about this web server?
Yes.
Yes, Tomcat. So vCenter server in the background installs a web server called Tomcat. Okay, and the Tomcat web server usually uses Java virtual machine in the background. So the Java virtual machine requires memory, and that memory depends on the inventory size of your vSphere infrastructure. So it asks you what is your inventory size at that particular time, and you need to mention the inventory size. like less than 100 or less than 400 or greater than 400. So based on the inventory size you select, JVM of Tomcat is going to use that much amount, that much amount of memory. So some interviewer may ask you what is the web server used in our vCenter infrastructure. Then you need to inform Tomcat, and I'll show you that particular service, guys. Tomcat service after the installation. It runs as a service on this machine.
Hello?
Yeah, guys, I'm here. The installation is continuing.
Major, this is Satyaman.
Yes.
Like we get a trial version for 50 days, right? This vCenter and VSX and everything. Is it bonded with NIC?
No.
It's not bonded with NIC, right?
No.
So we can install as many as.
Yep. That possibility is there, yes.
Thanks, man.
Yep.
Zib, can we use same VMware on workstation?
Yeah, you can run it on workstation as well, provided your CPU has virtualization technology.
Yeah, that is the problem actually. It was not installing. It doesn't have. Mine is T6550 or something. Yeah. Dual core. Is there any other option to practice?
No, that's the only option, guys. If you want to practice on workstation, then your CPU needs to have virtualization technology. Then only you can run a 64-bit operating system on top of workstation. If not possible. Why don't you utilize the lab which is being provided to you guys?
Yeah, we are using. So, once classes are over, we cannot access the lab. No? That is the problem.
Yeah.
Can't you let us access your lab even after the classes?
You need to contact Srinivas regarding this. Maybe I'm not aware of all this stuff. Like, so just contact Srinivas. Maybe he'll have some sort of grace time for you people, if possible. Like after the classes, maybe 2 or 3 days or 5 days. I don't know. So just contact him and maybe he can work. He may come up with a solution.
There is a gap of 10 days means they will forget everything. There is a problem.
That's the reason why concept-wise you be strong, guys. That's what I'm explaining you. So whatever I'm explaining, just try to understand that concept-wise. Once you understand the concept, then not a problem. You'll not forget what is what and what are the components and which particular component is depending on which particular component, so on and so forth. So if you understand the components.
This was the reason why I was asking for your details, because if you're doing a practical and if you suck somewhere, I know there's always the lab manual and stuff, but then the few things which you need to actually ask here, and then
Yes.
obviously we're stuck. So
Yeah, I totally agree with you. However, have a word with Srinivas, and most probably I can share that information with you. And you can reach me through email, and if you have any issues, you can just contact me, and I'll give you a solution. All right. Uh-huh. Yes, Rupesh. Could you repeat the training what you're undergoing through? Yes, absolutely. Yeah. See, for that, are you aware that you have to go through the official training of VMware, like authorized training? Yeah. Yes, that is required. That is required. Without that, you cannot write the examination directly. So you need to
without what,
have
sorry?
towards your
Without
without the authorized training center.
yeah, of course, that's the minimum requirement for it, obviously.
Yes.
And you have to go
So
through
if you
the
have that,
process.
then you can write the examination. Not a problem. And yeah, beyond, yes, there is this is the second level, basically, VCP. So prior to VCP, there is VC, VCA, I think, VMware Certified Associate. Then is VMware Certified Professional. Then you have VMware Certified Data Center Administrator, VCDA, and then comes the expert level. So you are at the second level. So third and the fourth level is available. After this, there are two other levels.
But Zoom provides those trainings, or you personally
No,
provide the training?
right now, we are only concentrating on VCP. However, I can train on VCDA as well, Data Center Administrator. But VCP is the thing where most people get certified with this. And after that, either no one gets certified further, and they'll continue with VCP and gain knowledge. Fine, but that's all. There is no much what to say requirement on training on VCDA. If there are many people asking for that particular course, then definitely we'll go ahead and offer it. Not an issue.
You personally don't provide training for that, is it?
Yeah, I also provide training for that, but there is no demand for VCDA usually. Maybe there will be out of 1,000, one guy is going to ask VCDA. So
what are the scopes? What are the scopes of it? If you actually do VCDA, how's the market?
it's good, guys. Like that is something where you enhance your knowledge from the professional level to the advanced level. Okay, so that knowledge comes through practical a lot rather than going through the theoretical part. More to do with practical. You have data center administrator, data center design, how to design a data center, how to design the virtual infrastructure, what type of solutions, so on and so forth. So, yep, absolutely. So, how to design your data center, how to have your host, how many virtual machines.
there is a demand for design engineers as well in the market.
Yes,
but it's not
there
a
is a demand.
big market. It's not a big market though, but
It's not a big market, but there is a demand for that as well. That is, yeah. For example, I can design a data center with the requirements. I can take the requirements of the clients and design accordingly, and provide them the right solutions. What is the storage they need to go with? What is the server types they need to go with? And how to configure, and what should be the load on the server, so on and so forth. So yes, there is a demand for it, but number of opportunities wise, because once the data center is designed, you no more change the data center design again and again.
Of course, that's what I was gonna say. Any company would design it only for once, and then
only for once,
forget it for the next side
for the
for
rest,
how many years.
For the rest, Yeah, that's what.
Yeah.
That's the reason why you don't come across data centers every day
True.
being established. So that is the issue with that particular thing.
True.
No required of authorized training. Authorized training is not required. Only for BCP it is required. After that, you can write on your own. You can write that examination on your own. All you need to pay is the online fees. Whatever the charge, they charge you maybe around $175 or $200 or 250. I'm not aware of the exact that. So you pay that and you write the examination on your own. No requirement for you to go undergo official training again. Only for VCP they have that clause.
You personally, Mujib, I mean, do you just provide the virtualization training, or is there any other trainings you provide?
I am only on virtualization. I'm an expert of virtualization. I don't provide any other training. But traditionally, I'm a Windows guy. I was on Windows platform for almost 6 years, and after that, VMware vSphere platform. This is my 5th year in virtualization. So traditionally a Windows guy, but now only on virtualization. I don't provide training on any other technology apart from virtualization. Yeah, I had an opportunity to work on Citrix once. Hypervisor not that frequently, but I can manage every hypervisor on x86 platform. Whether it is
So you don't provide Citrix training?
See guys, I'll tell you what. I can also provide Citrix training. Provide training on Hyper-V, provide training on Oracle VM, provide training on KVM. But let me inform you this. Once you know VMware vSphere, you understand the architecture of VMware vSphere, then on your own you can manage Hyper-V, Citrix Zen, Oracle VM, and KVM. There is no training required for you guys. But because you understand each and every components of virtual infrastructure, and once you go through the documentation, you can configure each and everything on your own. Training is not required. Take my words, guys. There are many of my students who have been working in organizations. They got placed in organizations, freshers or experienced. They got trained only on VMware vSphere but they are working on VMware vSphere plus Hyper-V, working on VMware vSphere plus Citrix Zen, and some guys are only working on Citrix Zen. They got placed because they know VMware vSphere. They did not undergo training on Citrix Zen, but they are managing it because in the beginning I told you no other hypervisor explains you virtualization like VMware vSphere explains you. You understand the entire architecture, the fundamental components which forms your virtualization. So you have a better understanding. Because of that understanding, you can manage the other hypervisors very easily. Frankly speaking, I don't feel any requirement for you to undergo training on any other hypervisors. But it is not vice versa. I've seen people struggling managing VMware vSphere coming from the background of Hyper-V or Citrix Zen or KVM. Why? Because they don't understand. Why? Because that hypervisor doesn't explain virtualization as VMware vSphere explains. So again, they have to undergo training for VMware vSphere. I've seen that people in real time. In classroom training, there are many of students who are working in real time. They have been working on Hyper-V since 1 or 2 years, but they come and get trained on VMware vSphere. So that is the trend basically.
Citrix, obviously the concepts they're different, right? Citrix is different from
No, try to understand
VMware.
this. Citrix is the name of a company, and they also develop many products. So basically, Citrix is known in the industry for its application virtualization product called Citrix XenApp. Basically, this Citrix XenApp used to be called as Presentation Server earlier, but from version 5 onwards, they have renamed that particular application as Citrix XenApp. It is an application virtualization product basically, and the server virtualization product from Citrix is Citrix Zen, based on let's say Zen standard, and Oracle VM is also based on Zen, and KVM is based on Linux basically, but KVM has been designed many components have been derived from Zen source again, so on and so forth. So inventory service has been installed. Now it is preparing to install a vCenter server application.
So Mujib, don't mind me asking, you're working and you're training as well at the moment? Oh, as I said, that's a no question, is it? Can't answer it.
All right. All right. Now, guys, in vSphere infrastructure, vCenter server also requires a license. Okay. And this depends on number of hosts which you are managing. If you have a license, you can enter it. If not, it will be installed in the evaluation mode. Click on next. Now, vCenter server also requires a database. If you have a database supported, then click on it. If not, it is going to install server 2008 Express instance. I told you it is good for small infrastructures. Here, VMware says that Express Edition is good for small deployments, maybe up to 5 hosts and 50 virtual machines. But we have used it up to 10 to 20 hosts and 100 to 200 virtual machines without any issues. And these are the default ports used by vCenter server. And here comes the JVM, as I discussed about. So here, web services, it uses JVM, and that is a Tomcat web server in the background, and that JVM is going to use memory, and that depends on the inventory size. If you have less than 100 hosts and 1000 virtual machines, you need to select this. Maybe less than 400 hosts and 4000 virtual machines, select second one, or if it is large, go with the third option. However, I'm going with the default option because I have not many ESXi hosts. Click on install. Yep. And now it is continuing with the vCenter installer, vCenter server.
Hello?
I'm here, guys.
Rajiv,
Yeah.
now saying once we're done with the class, can I actually show you my virtual machine which I
Sure.
configured with ESXi before?
Sure. Sure.
Jose, instead of mounting the device, this one CD, can we use that CD icon, whatever is available on the top of screen,
Where?
to install these vCenter server or VM tool, VMware tools?
No, VMware tools has to be mounted because VMware tools are provided by ESXi host basically. Okay.
No. Actually, you have mounted that one, that image.
Yeah, that means it is accessible through that ISO image. Okay. So, for example, you have that installer available, not in the form of ISO, but totally the installer. You can also install it in that way, extract it and install it. Not a problem.
Whatever I am asking, instead of that, we can use this CD icon on top of our window, console window. There one CD icon is there by using that. Yeah.
Yeah, you can also do that. Why not? Okay. See, disconnect from data store image, it will get disconnect.
Oh.
Okay. Well, can you show you which is your virtual machine which you have configured?
Me, I'm on.
Yeah, this one.
You talking to me?
On the 20?
On 20, yeah, please, 20.
Yeah, which is your machine?
One which says Osman. One.
This one?
Yeah.
You have already installed ESXi on top of it?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
But I'm not sure whether I installed it properly or not.
No, you have installed ESX4. You have to install ESX5.
That's the only image I could find.
No, let me show you the image. Settings.
So that's why I was wondering why the whole installation process looks so different.
This is different
than what you showed.
Okay. ISO images. Okay, this is VM6 5.1 install. You need to select this image.
The VM6
Maybe you have selected
okay.
ESX4.
Yeah.
You have to select this image.
Okay. Can we do it now? Hello.
I have removed that hard disk. I'm adding a new hard disk to it. So that.
Okay.
You can freshly install.
Hello.
So this is the installer, guys. So enter. This is how ESXi appears. Loading ESXi installer. Okay, and this installation will continue. Let us see what happened to our vCenter server. I'm still installing for further install.
Yeah, now it looks proper.
Yep. Okay. Okay, guys, the installation was completed successfully. You can see that. Click on finish. Message appears which will inform us that the entire package, which includes single sign-on, inventory service, and VMware vCenter server, has installed successfully or completed successfully. Click on OK. Now, what are these? Basically, these are running, all these three components are running as service on this particular machine. You can find it out by going into the administrative tools and click on the services. And if you see this, the first one is vCenter single sign-on. The service is running. Find the second vCenter inventory service. And here is the vCenter server service. And this is the Tomcat service, guys. If I double click on the service, you can see that VC Tomcat. You are able to see this? VC Tomcat. And the VPXD, you have seen that VPXD. I told you it is nothing but a service of vCenter server. If I double click it, you can see that the name of the service is VPXD, which is my vCenter server service.
How many services?
Guys, you need to check for 4 services, guys. Single sign-on. Now, this service is on this machine. Why? Because single sign-on was got installed on the same machine. Inventory service. Third one is web services. The fourth one is vCenter server service. So sometimes if you are unable to get connected to your vCenter server, then most probably one of the services is not running. So go and check out whether single sign-on, inventory service, web service, and vCenter server service is running. If all these services are running, then you'll be getting connected to your vCenter server. Yeah.
So basically, only these 4 services need to be running always. So for the vCenter server to be connected.
Yeah.
Be connected.
Yes.
Okay.
These are the services where you need to go and check out. Single sign-on, inventory, web services, and vCenter services. So
The
these
other
4
services
services.
I can see as well. I mean, these services, what are the use of? The VMware
So
snapshot and stuff.
this is like profile-driven service. It is also related with vCenter. This is also related with vCenter, but the most important services are these 4 by which vSphere client gets connected. Okay.
So if these services, the extra services which you pointed out, if they are stopped in a
So
particular
they'll get started
situation,
automatically. The only problem is with these 3 services: single sign-on, web services, and what to say, vCenter service. But because these are delayed services, that means they'll get started afterwards. You see, this automatic
How about
services
how
will
about
start
inventory?
automatically. The inventory
Inventory as
service will start automatically. Okay. But
Okay.
these are the delayed services. They'll start a bit later. So sometimes they'll not get started if you do not shut down the machine properly. These problems will come when you do not shut down the machine properly if you're shutting down. So just check out whether these services are running. If these services are running, then fine. Sometimes if you're unable to connect to your vCenter server, then come and check whether these services are running. If they're not running, then start these services manually, and most probably the problem will be solved and you'll be able to get connected to your vCenter server. So the vCenter server installation is done, and this machine will run. Okay, I'm executing it out. Now, how to get connected to my vCenter server? Using vSphere client. So launch vSphere client, and vSphere client can be used to get connected to an ESXi host directly or to vCenter server. Now I want to get connected to my vCenter server. I need to enter the IP address of vCenter server, which is 10.0.1.210. And here, the credentials, the security of vCenter server depends on Windows security. I need to use the domain administrator credentials. zoom.com/administrator DC. The password, uppercase S O O M 1234. Enter. You get an SSL warning. Ignore. And now you'll get connected to vCenter server.
This is a question, Rajiv, silly question could be. vSphere client, that can be on a server which is running the vCenter service, or
No. It can be on any machine. It should be on your local machine.
Any machine.
From which you are accessing your vSphere infrastructure. It can be your laptop. It can be your desktop provided by your organization. Okay. And vSphere client is a client component.
Does it have?
Yep.
Does it have any specific? What do you say? Requirements? Memory.
Yeah. As I told you, it is developed using .NET framework. Okay. So you require .NET 3.5. However, .NET 3.5 is installed during the installation of vSphere client itself. Okay. So not an issue. So you can install it. However,
memory processor requirement,
not specifically. Like it can get installed on any Windows machine, whether it is a client machine or a server machine. Not an issue.
Okay.
Fine. So just sometimes suppose a certain operating system like Windows Server 2012 will not have .NET 3.5 on it. So you need to manually install .NET 3.5 on Server 2012. Apart from that, you can install it on XP, Windows 7, Windows 8, 2003, 2008, whether it is 32-bit or 64-bit without any issues. But on Server 2012, you need to see that .NET 3.5 is installed manually. Okay. Fine. So this is how you get connected to your vCenter server, guys. I got connected to my vCenter server, but this vCenter server is empty right now. I need to add ESXi host to it. Okay. We'll continue tomorrow. This particular session, how to add an ESXi host, and this last slide, which I was about to discuss, what is vCenter server inventory, what does it mean, what is the meaning of these data centers, what is the meaning of objects, so on and so forth. We'll continue tomorrow. Okay. So my vCenter is ready. Tomorrow, all I need to do is add my ESXi host to it so that I can manage it from a central location, centralized administration, central point of administration. Okay. Yeah.
Can you before you go, Mujib, can we just have a look at the installation of the machine?
Sure. Why not? Okay. Yes. Tomorrow you want to complete any labs. Like make sure that your two ESXIs are ready. Okay, virtual ESXIs are ready. And guys, if you want to practice vCenter installation, okay, you can practice that, but you don't require different vCenter servers like for every individual. All you 6 guys can use the same vCenter server, not a problem. I'll show you how you can use a single vCenter server. Fine, but for practice, definitely you can practice the installation. After the installation, just delete off that virtual machine. Or if someone wants to store it or have it, not an issue. But not everyone requires a vCenter server. One vCenter server, as I told you, it has a capacity to manage almost 1,000 hosts. So you can use the same vCenter server. You can also use the vCenter server which I have created right now. For installation, if you want to practice, definitely you can practice it, not an issue. Okay. So Usman, can you continue the installation from here if you want to, or you want me to continue the installation?
I reckon it will take some time for you to do this, right? I'll do the continuation. Don't worry.
Okay, fine. I'm on 3391, port number 3391. Okay.
Yeah, not a problem. And
So,
you said two
3391 is mine.
Okay, I'm just disconnecting it right now. I'm not going to use it. Okay. Fine, you can continue whatever the port numbers which have been assigned to you guys.
All
right.
Okay. Mujib, you said we need to install 2 ESXiOS, right?
Yes.
So 2 means both of them can be on 1.20 or one on 1.20 and one on 1.30.
It can be on 1.20 and 1.30. Anything, not an issue.
All right, not a problem. Cool.
Okay. Fine.
Thank you, Mujib. Bye.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Bye.
Yeah.
Catch you tomorrow, guys.
Yeah.
You're welcome.